Well, welcome to another Black History conversation. I'm Liz Millman from Learning Links International, and I've got my colleague Caroline Sansom with me, and also others who've worked over the last months and quite some time now that we've been running these. Dr. Jim Thakordin, Simon from Nottingham, and David Alston from up in the Highlands. We were talking with Bumney Ollie's son from Canada just recently. She's not able to be with us this morning, but we've got other interesting things to look at. So we call our sessions Unlocking Black History. Black History Matters, and we're talking about telling the stories and finding out about new initiatives, local Black history research, the statues and street names, and looking at Black history and heroes and heroines. So whoever's got their mic on, can you switch it off, please? I'm currently in Australia, and so I always acknowledge the traditional owners on the land in which I'm currently living, the Wurundjeri of the Kulin Nation, their elders past, present and future. This land belongs to the sovereign people of the First Nations. It was never ceded, it always was, and it always will be. And I was able to meet up with a local historian this morning, and he's been able to give me some books to be able to share more information about these stories. So we're thinking of people as the peoples of the Ukraine. Currently the news is very distressing, and so many people are suffering so badly. We've been talking before we started this recording, and we heard from Dr. Bumney Ollie's that because we're people, this was an article that I found that said that people are being pushed back, and she'd got direct experience of her nephew and difficulties that he had. So this is something that needs to be closely monitored. And interestingly, last week I showed this slide, a map of the most racist countries in Europe. I haven't got the interpretation of it, so I think next week maybe we'll have a look at this in a bit more detail. This is research from some time ago, but I suspect sadly it'll be just as relevant today. Okay, so Unlocking Black History, exploring local Black history. We're very much looking at local Black history now, understanding in cities, counties, countries, just what the Black history stories are, what the key stories are. And we're going to emphasize some of those stories in the presentation today. So last week we were exploring local Black history research, Plateau State, Nigeria. That was shared by Professor Sati Fakshat from Just University. And also we had a colleague from Exeter in Devon. We had Seema from Flicher in North Wales telling us about the work she'd done. And we also caught up with an exceptional painter and activist, Kellen, Jean Samuel, and the Dominican fabric artist, Carol Sahindo, and introduced herself, and she's promised to come on the session again. It was an absolutely fantastic session. The session's posted, here's the link, but it's also on the website. Now I'm just going to go through again, because we have colleagues who weren't with us last week. I found this article in the conversation to follow up what Professor Sati was talking about, and what studying history at school can do for Nigerians, because history was removed from the Nigerian school curriculum in 2009, supposedly because students avoided the subject and graduates didn't have job prospects and teachers were scarce. But Nigerians weren't happy with the decision, and it's now been reversed, and the government's directed that history should be taught as a standalone subject in the 2021 academic session. So this goes back a little bit. So the article is about one of the professors of history in Lagos, tells the story. But Professor Sati told us his story and the work that he's doing, working with local groups all across Plateau State, and enabling them to tell their own history, and they're recording their own history. So that will be the history that will be taught in the schools in Plateau State, Nigeria. So that was really interesting. If any of you want to cut in at any time, I can stop the screen share and just talk with you. This is the information about Exeter in Devon. And this is really interesting. Now, I don't know if this will work, Simon. If it doesn't work, then I apologise. But if we click on the PowerPoint, we can get to the... Can you see the moving screen now? Or can you still see the... Can you see me moving the screen?
No.
No. I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to go back into it. Can you see it now moving?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the live web. This is their website, which is about Exeter multicultural history, and the way they've presented their local Black history is through a timeline going back to, like, this is AD 55, and then the Romans and all sorts of stories. But all these stories, when you click on them, have got information about either Black people who've been living or links with Black history in the area, or other interesting things. But it is specifically about Black history and the history of other people from other backgrounds living in that area. So it's quite fascinating. I'm just going quickly through it. It'd be interesting if you want to look it up, because it then goes into more the years of slave trading. And obviously, well, Devon was a country, an area of Britain where many of the pirates came from, and there were a lot of links across, as well as stories of abolitionists and African descendants on hard times. So it's a great deal of information there. So it's a fantastic resource, and there's an exhibition in Exeter at the moment. So what we're hoping to do is to maybe encourage organisations to do virtual tours. And Marcia Dunkley, who's working with us, is from Black Heritage Network, Heritage Tours Network, Walks Network, sorry, Black Heritage Walks Network. I'm sorry, it's really late at night here, it's midnight, so not quite as articulate as I should be. Anyway, off we go again then. All right, so that was an interesting presentation. And this is the exhibition at the Royal Albert Memorial Museum in Art Gallery in Exeter. We also had Seema speak with us about Flicher and the slave trade. That's in North Wales, near to Liverpool. So she was talking about a lot of the commodities that were made there out of copper and brass and iron, also cotton, and then how commodities came back into the community of North Wales, the sugar and the other products that came back in. So there was clearly, there's a lot of interesting information on that website, Flicher and the slave trade. Fikela Jean Samuel also spoke with us about his fantastic paintings and the wonderful work that he's doing. So his website again is full of information and really inspirational. And Carol Sohando, I checked out her website, which is her name, artist.com. And some of her work is absolutely fantastic. She works now, she was living in the UK, one of Audrey's colleagues, I think, friends. She's now back in Dominica, and she's working with nature and plants in her artwork. So she's also particularly encouraging exploration of roots, cultural heritage, and connection to site and place, because plants were a very big part of the information that was passed across the Atlantic and around the world in the time of enslaving Africans. So we were going to, unfortunately, Bunmi wasn't able to make it last week, and she's apologised again this week. She's obviously got her hands full at the moment. But Bunmi's Sankova Pan-African series is amazing. Her husband produces films, so she's set up during the time of COVID, when she was in Canada, she set up a studio, and she's been recording these programs every week with interviews and different things. Absolutely fantastic. So if you Google Sankova Pan-African series, you'll be able to access, they're all posted online. But she's also now got Apple Podcasts, which I'm fascinated by, and we may well listen to one of those later on. We'll see. We've got quite a lot to get through. Okay, and she launched, and this is why she was going to join us last week, to tell us about the children's stories website she's just launched, and that is https://nanadaycare.org. And she'll be back to tell us more about that, I'm sure, another time. That was a bit more about that. And these are the books. Some of her, as I say, some of her sessions are fantastic, and this Why is History Distorted and How Does It Affect Africa? She gets some really good speakers, and she herself is extremely knowledgeable, and she's able to contribute. And as I say, the session, it's about 23 minutes. It's on the podcast, or you can watch the video version. Why, when, and how did Europe twist African history? She has a very interesting perspective, and she talks about how Britain and European countries were so run down after the plague, the Black Deaths, after the mini ice age, and all sorts of difficulties that were happening at that time, and then how she describes the explorers like David Livingstone and Henry Morton Stanley, who's photographed here, who's the person that Helen researched and told the story of his wife and his life and times. Very interesting perspectives on that. So this is just to say again that the Apple Podcasts, you can look them all up. So she really is a great resource, and much more organised than our resources are at the moment, Jim. So fine. Okay, so this is the podcast list at the moment. She's got 10 of those listed. So this is also Simon, so that we can think about how we might do something like this in the future. Okay, so last week I also used the example of Harvard professor Henry Louis Gates Jr. So if you're looking at American history, if you're interested in Black American history, he really is the go-to person, along with the 1619 Project, celebrating outstanding Black history campaigners and activists. He really is, in my humble opinion, and the opinion of a whole lot of other people, an amazing character. So he's got a series which it's possible to see now online, some of the sessions, Finding Your Roots, and I think it's like a bit like Who Do You Think You Are, but specifically for people in the Black community, African descendants in the States. So there's some really interesting things on there. We can get PBS on the television here. They broadcast on our TV in Australia, and some of their news programs and things are really very good and often refer to issues of concern or celebration in the Black community. So one of his quotes is, "We are 99.9% the same." So he's a real one to celebrate, and this was another of the things he was doing. I was hoping that Marcia would join us today, but she's obviously working. This is a very interesting project, The World Reimagined, which is being developing resources for education. And they've at the moment got a range of host cities. So they'll be looking at the Black history stories of those host cities. And it's an amazing project, that. And this was, people send me information. Audrey often sends me links with things to include, but this came from Professor Robert Moore, who was working in Liverpool, Jamaica, making artworks. There's some absolutely wonderful work. This is an example of just one of them. But just going back to the it started in February and it's going through to July. So if anybody with a particular interest in Jamaica wants to get to Liverpool, then that's going to be a good exhibition. Brilliant painting, Usain Bolt handing over the baton to a Safa Powell. Brilliant. And in Wolverhampton, Ricardo de Bruce, who's a poet and artist, is telling Stephen Lawrence's story. And that's opened now, and Marcy's going to visit it. So it's called Stephen, Architect of Hope, a tribute to Stephen Lawrence, because one of the his dream was to be an architect. And so we're waiting for some feedback from Marcia on that. She's going to the opening. Just to say that this might be of interest, that the Windrush Cymru elders have now got a short video, as well as the big exhibition, which is now going all around Wales, telling their stories. It's a really impressive project. And Vanessa Cyril's here. She was a nurse, was very, very well respected. And our voices, our stories, our history. I'm not going to read it in Welsh. It's an amazing short video. For people with an interest in African American Irish diaspora, there's information that a session coming up called Black, Brown and Green Voices. I'm going to whiz past that one. So if you're interested, just let me know. Then tomorrow we're doing a Zoom session between Wales and Jamaica, from North Wales, North Wales Jamaica Society, and also the Jamaica Wales Alliance. We're all teaming up together, and we're welcoming Dr. Jose Andres Fernandez Montes de Oca from the University of Costa Rica to tell us about the very fascinating story of the 1938 labour unrest across the Caribbean, and his research into the community leader, Robert Rumble. Now, Robert Rumble instigated a successful tenant strike in Pennant, which led the Bangor-based, that's the North Wales-based Pennant family, to sell their Jamaican plantations. So that's going to be a really interesting session at 9 o'clock in Jamaica, 2 o'clock in Wales, and I won't even tell you what time it'll be in Australia, but I'll try and stay awake. Interesting in the news today, footballer calls for national curriculum to include Black and minority topics. There's certainly a lot of people pushing for this. In Wales now, the Black history is to be taught in the curriculum, but we don't know what yet. But we had the Dr. Charlotte Williams, Professor Charlotte Williams, spoke to us about what they were doing in Wales. And this is about the new impartiality guidance for schools. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Jim, but it sounds very impartial. The Voice reports that 2 of Nigeria's looted Benin bronzes are returned more than 100 years after they were stolen. I found out something today that the manillas that were used for exchange for enslaved people, are quite likely that they would have been valued because of being brass for the purposes of artworks, but that needs to be explored some more. I'd also been looking at something about the travellers at that time, and Thomas Pennant. Somebody's done some research about Thomas Pennant and where he relates first-hand experience of production for items for the slave trade as he travels around the north of England, Scotland, and North Wales. David might know more about that. I'll go over that one. This is interesting that, and I haven't got a link. I haven't put a link for this one, but it's obviously in North America. There were African Americans, and there were also Native American Indians, First Americans, and so looking at the Black History Organization in Worcester in the States, and that's something that they had. So we're going to find out if they recorded it. In Wales and in other parts of the country, there's a march against racism in the middle of March. Other people will know about that. Interesting archaeological breakthrough as underground slaves escaped the underground network has been found, and also I've seen something today about somebody's doing research in the States about the homes that enslaved people lived in, and they're creating a database. Very fascinating map on this Daily Express article of the Underground Railway, it's often called. This is the London Sugar and Slavery Museum. They've got a collaborative project which will be interesting to follow. Right, we're getting to the end. And this is, there's a whole range of really interesting pictures that you can see online, which reflect how life was over the years there. Lost me. This is an Australian story, and I'll talk about that another time. Marcia and I started the Teaching Black British History course. It's a teacher training guide, and you can do 3 weeks for free. I've managed to do week 1, and it's really quite interesting about how to, if you're a teacher, how you can teach Black history. And I think it needs some critical evaluation. Okay, so I whistle stop to a whole lot of things there. Oh, hello, Theon Kiros.
Can I introduce Sion? Sion is my publisher in, it was in Ethiopia, but now in Nairobi. And I was telling you just before we started that she was planning to produce a book about African heroes. So I don't know, Sion, if you're able to tell us more about that, if Liz is okay with that. Liz is the chair of this group.
I'm absolutely delighted. Yes, I was just rattling through the sort of what's been on and what's going on sessions, but we might have a few questions about that in a bit. But lovely, we'd love to hear from you from Nairobi. This is brilliant.
So the publishing company is actually based in Addis. We just recently opened an office here in Nairobi. So previously we were just focused on local language Ethiopian books, but now we're expanding to more African stories. So this book I'm thinking of is Heroes, African Heroes. I don't know if you guys know about the book titled the Goodnight Story for Rebel Girls. So it covers women from all over the world. So these women are not necessarily do-good women. Some of them are, criminals, I might say. But it shows that women can be whatever they want to be, and they're capable of doing what they want to do. So this book that I'm thinking of is going to be queens and heroes, warriors of African women. So Helen is obviously involved. She's involved in most of our books. That's about it. If you have any questions.
Can I just say that I've not seen Sion since 2018, and it's really lovely to see you again.
Really fantastic. So tell us about some of which 3 women would you just like to tell us that you're going to include in this publication? Which
so it's
3
going to be actually 10. It's going to be 10 women. We haven't yet really decided,
right.
But let me just get my notes.
And can I just say to Beverly, yes, I will send you the information about the artist exhibition.
Thank you.
It's going to be hard to pronounce this name, so I'm going to try. So there's Nijinga Mumbandi. She is an Angolan queen, monarch. She was a monarch, wasn't the monarch, and became queen eventually. So we're covering her. And we're covering Nitimbongang. I think I should write it down. It's best if I write it.
Oh,
I'm going to
yes.
write it to everybody.
That's lovely. If you put it in the chat, that's great.
She's from Angola.
Right. Okay. So she's from Angola. Right. This will be so valuable. Earlier in our conversation, we were joined by she's Nigerian, but she's based in Canada at the moment, and she's just launched a children's website, and she wants to have books there. So we've got Donna Beatrix from the Congo as well. That's great.
These are some of the women that we'll be covering, we'll be featuring in the books. So it's going to be illustrated and just, give information about this women. So the plan is to do it for young girls or boys from 9 to about 11-year-olds. Yes. And it's going to be in English and adapted to the different local languages, Swahili, Amharic, Tigrinya, and what have you. So it's early stage, so I can't say much at this point, but we're working on it.
It's just so interesting to.
I ask Liz, I don't know whether it's going to be completely relevant, but I met Sion a number of years ago, first through email, and then we met in face-to-face in Ethiopia. But Sion has done something remarkable with teaching children to read in Ethiopia through the main government language, Amharic. And I don't know if you know, Sion, how many books you've actually published since we started together, and what it's actually achieved, because you've also gone on to producing books for other language groups. And I just think it's worth sharing with this group.
That's marvelous. Yeah, tell us about that then.
Okay, so Amharic and Tigrinya are mostly used in Ethiopia. Well, it's only used in Ethiopia. So Amharic has about 300 letters. So previously, before I started doing this, so children would learn through memorization. So they'd memorize all these 300 letters and then start reading. They can't start reading before they know all the 300 letters. So what we did is we developed a method where we broke down the fiddles. So first we teach the basic letters, and then we go on to the vowels. So a child would start reading from after learning about 12 letters, 12 fiddles. That's what we call them. So it motivates them to keep reading, to keep learning, because after 12 letters,
Yeah. Have you frozen or is it me?
No, I think Sion's frozen.
No, it's frozen, unfortunately. That's a shame.
Oh gosh, this is so frustrating.
Yeah.
Right, while we're waiting for Sion to come back, can Beverly, you say there's lots happening in the Northeast. Your local museum, TWAM, sending via Twitter Black Women in the Northeast for International Women's Day, and two exhibitions forthcoming. So it would be really, really interesting. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Sure. As you know, I edited a booklet on Black African lives in Northern England. So a lot of things have sprung off from that, both with universities and schools and museums. So if anybody wants to buy it, let me know.
Well, please tell us about it, Beverly, because some of us don't know about it.
Let's see if I can find a copy. I'm just about to go and have lunch, so I'll have to go soon.
Okay, well, we'll be wrapping up in a moment.
Right, this is the booklet. It's only £5, but the postage is expensive, £2. So as I said, I've done some work with a local school, 11-year-olds, really enthusiastic. Work with a couple of universities, exploring the process of writing the booklet, as well as the content. Tyne and Wear archives and museums, as I said, are doing this Twitter, which is really good. But you know, Twitter, you can only say a few words. So all they're really saying is the name of one black woman in the Northeast, a sentence on her, and saying there's more information in the booklet. And
can I just ask you, can you just hang on 1 minute? Let's Sion just finish what she was doing. Do you mind, in case we lose the line again?
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Beverly. Sion?
Yes, thank you so much. Should I share the video so you can have a better understanding?
Please.
Yep. Video sharing is enabled. Yeah.
Is it? Okay. Give me 1 second.
Yep.
It's all right.
Just remember to click the button that tells you to share the audio as well.
So great learning curve, this, to work out how to, that looks fine. I can see this all happening in front of me. Yeah.
Let me start from the beginning.
Wow, that's amazing.
Thank you.
And
Took a lot of work.
Yes, there needs to be so much innovation in helping with reading in different languages. It's obviously quite challenging.
Exactly, because before Without this method, children learn to read in 3 years, 2 to 3 years. With our method, they learn to read in 5 to 8 months because it's not based on memorization.
No, it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and they can build that up and then cope with writing as well. Are the children getting confident with writing as well in Amharic? Oh dear. Well, we managed to see the video. That was a great thing, wasn't it?
Not so much. I think the focus writing the figures, nothing writing the story.
Yeah. What else do you want to ask Helen to share with us?
I think Sion said it all, and I mean, she's not included all the storybooks, online activities, using games. You know, it's just a huge enterprise, and it's all been done in addition to another full-time job, hasn't it, Sion?
Right.
So it is just amazing.
This doesn't pay. Books
Well, it's wonderful, and it's
don't pay.
great of sharing,
This is hobby.
sharing the materials that you're producing with others around the world. And nowadays, with online opportunities, we can do these kind of things and have people speaking from different places. That's just amazing. Yeah.
If I can add, I did go on Bunmi's launch of the Sankova website. And that's how I got back in touch with Sion, because I sent her the link, but she wasn't available. And I mean, it's fascinating and again, amazing what Bunmi's achieved with the Sankova side. And I just think it can be populated with lots of materials from across the African nations, as well as obviously other parts of Caribbean and so on. But I mean, there was another venture in South Africa where it provides free books, but it is kind of one of those where, as long as people contribute, then those books can be shared. But I'm really glad that Sion managed to make it today. I kind of contacted her just as the program started, so it's great to see her again and to hear what's happening. And I think we'll all hopefully be able to share the book on African heroines.
Right. Yes. Well, that'll be wonderful, because that'll be so informative to others around the world who our knowledge of Africa is often very limited. So that's wonderful. Sion, thank you so much. Thank you. I realise Beverly's had to leave us now, and that was unfortunate that she was not able to tell us more about her work on writing up about African lives in Northern England. But she says she'll join us again, and she'll share there. So thank you so much, then. So I think we'll wind up the session now. It's been really interesting. We've had some great contributions. Thank you. June Elizabeth, I wondered if there was anything else that you wanted to add to share with us.
I'm very pleased that I was able to join you today. I think there's a saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person. So I really enjoyed listening to what's happening around the globe. Yes. And hopefully next week, I hope to be able to join you. I had to take a call because I'm also a carer for my husband. He's 84 and he's got some health problems, but I had to just take a hospital appointment there. So I missed Sion's email, what do you call it, video, yeah. But I would be interested if you could, you got my details.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, let's just chat
tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Thanks ever so much for everybody for all the things that we've contributed. We'll just wrap up the recording now. Thanks, Simon.